The skillet on my stove was poured in a foundry in Erie, Pennsylvania, sometime before the First World War. My grandmother Verna cooked on it for 51 years, in a farmhouse 11 miles outside Mountain View, Missouri. She never bought a bottle of oil for that pan, never set a timer, never checked a temperature. That pan is blacker and slicker than anything you can buy new today. Verna could not have told you the word polymerization. She didn't know she was running a chemical reaction every morning she fried salt pork before daylight. She knew what her mother showed her. Her mother knew what her mother showed her. Not one of them wrote a word of it down. Somewhere between her kitchen and yours, that chain broke. Not slowly, in about one generation. I'm Hollis Ward. I'm 63 years old. I've stripped, rebuilt, and ruined enough of these pans to know exactly where people go wrong, and it is almost never where they think. A cast iron skillet is not a non-stick pan with a rustic finish. It is a slab of gray iron carrying somewhere between 2 and 4% carbon. And raw iron wants to do one thing. It wants to rust. Iron plus oxygen plus water. That reaction starts on bare metal within minutes in a humid kitchen. Seasoning is what stands between the iron and the air. But seasoning is not a coat of grease, and that misunderstanding is the root of nearly every failure I see. Here's what actually happens. Heat certain oils past a certain point, and the fat molecules stop behaving like fat. They break apart, grab oxygen out of the air, and link end to end into long chains. That process is called polymerization, small molecules joining up into one large one. What's left is not oil. It's a hard, dry, plastic-like film chemically bonded to the metal. That's why a good pan doesn't feel greasy. Touch Verna's skillet and it feels like glass, not butter. For 300 years, nobody had to be taught this, because there was nothing else to cook on. Then, in 1956, a French engineer named Marc Gregoire bonded polytetrafluoroethylene to an aluminum pan, PTFE, the slick coating sold as Teflon. Within 20 years, cast iron went from the default to the antique. The second break came in 2002. Lodge, running in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee since 1896, began selling its pans pre-seasoned from the factory. Good for sales, bad for knowledge. A whole generation bought pans that arrived black and assumed black meant finished. It doesn't. Factory seasoning is a floor, not a finish. Turn your skillet over and look at it in daylight before you buy a single thing. You're looking for one of three conditions: bare gray metal, patchy black with sticky spots, or orange rust. Sticky is the one people misread. A tacky, slightly gummy surface is not dirt, and it is not old food. It's oil that was applied too thick and never got hot enough to finish hardening. It has to come off. Season on top of it, and you're gluing a good layer onto a soft one, and the whole stack will peel inside a year. For rust, 50-50 white vinegar and water. No more than 1 hour, and check it every 15 minutes. The acetic acid dissolves iron oxide, but it does not stop at the rust. Forget the pan in there overnight, and you'll pull out pitted metal. For heavy carbon buildup, sodium hydroxide. Oven cleaner in the yellow can is lye, and lye saponifies old fat, turns it into soap so it rinses away. Bag the pan, leave it a week, gloves and eye protection the whole time. For a rare or thin pan, use electrolysis instead. Washing soda in water, a scrap steel plate, a battery charger on low. The current pulls oxide off without touching the iron. Do not run it through your oven's self-clean cycle. That cycle hits 800 to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Cast iron is brittle, and I have cracked a pan that way. It rang like a bell and split clean across the cooking face. Not every oil polymerizes, and the property that settles it is called iodine value. It's a lab measurement of how many double bonds a fat carries, expressed as grams of iodine absorbed per 100 grams of fat. More double bonds means more places for oxygen to attach, which means faster and harder curing. The real numbers. Flaxseed oil runs 170 to 190. Soybean, 120 to 140. Canola, 110 to 126. Grapeseed, 125 to 143. Lard, 50 to 70. Beef tallow, 35 to 48. Coconut oil sits around 8. Above roughly 130, chemists stop calling it a cooking oil and start calling it a drying oil. That's a term borrowed from the paint trade, not the kitchen. Which is why, in 2010, a chemist named Cheryl Cantor published an argument that flaxseed oil was the perfect seasoning fat. On exactly this reasoning, half the cast iron internet still repeats it, and it works beautifully. For about 6 months. Then it leaves in sheets, not flakes, sheets, like paint off a barn door. I'll tell you why later, and the reason isn't in any cookbook. Meanwhile, look at what the professionals do. Lodge seasons its factory pans with soybean oil. A foundry running millions of pans a year deliberately picked the middle of the range. Grapeseed, canola, soybean, or plain shortening. Stop agonizing over it. I put the whole oil chart on one page, iodine values and smoke points side by side, printable. Links in the description under this video. That's the only time I'll mention it. Half a teaspoon of oil. That's it for a 12-inch skillet. Rub it over every surface. Cooking face, sides, handle, the underside. Then take a clean cloth and wipe all of it back off. Not most of it, all of it. Wipe until a fresh paper towel comes away with barely a shadow on it. What stays behind is a film a few molecules thick, and that is the entire objective. Polymerization needs oxygen from the air, which means it can only happen at the surface. Oil sitting in a puddle hardens on top and stays liquid underneath. The trapped layer goes soft, then tacky, then rancid. And now you have a sticky core under a hard shell. That is what a ruined pan is. Too much oil, applied too many times, by someone being generous. Thin coats are also why this takes patience. A single layer is nearly invisible. You are building a finish the way a gunsmith builds an oil finish on a walnut stock. One coat that looks like nothing, 30 times. Oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Not 350, not 400. The figure that governs this is the smoke point, the temperature at which an oil begins to break down and visibly smoke. In cooking, smoke point is a ceiling you avoid. In seasoning, it's a floor you clear on purpose, because that breakdown is the reaction. Grapeseed smokes around 420, canola around 400, refined soybean around 450, vegetable shortening around 490. Unrefined flaxseed smokes at roughly 225, which is another problem with it. Pan goes in upside down on the upper rack, with foil or a sheet pan on the rack below to catch drips. 1 hour at temperature. Then shut the oven off and leave the pan inside until it's cool enough to hold, usually another hour or more. Cooling slowly in the closed oven lets the film finish setting instead of shocking it. 1 round gives you a faint bronze. 3 rounds gives you brown. 6 gives you the first honest black. Verna's pan has 51 years of layers on it, and not one of them happened in an oven. Here's where I lose some of you. You can wash a cast iron skillet with dish soap. The old rule was correct, for the soap your great-grandmother had. Verna made hers in a kettle in the yard from wood ash lye and hog fat. Homemade lye soap carries free alkali, meaning leftover sodium hydroxide that never got consumed in the batch. Free alkali saponifies fat. Saponification is the reaction that turns fat into soap, and it will run on the fat sitting on your skillet just as happily as it ran in the kettle. Modern dish liquid is not soap. It's synthetic detergent, surfactants that lift grease mechanically and leave the metal alone. And here's what closes the argument. Once seasoning polymerizes, it is no longer fat. The triglycerides are gone, cross-linked into something else. There is nothing left there to saponify. Lodge's own current care instructions say mild soap is fine. The rule survived its own reason by about 70 years, and nobody went back to check. What actually kills pans is standing water. Wash it, rinse it, then set it on a burner over medium for 2 minutes until it's bone dry and slightly too hot to hold comfortably. Water is the enemy. Soap never was. Verna's skillet never saw an oven cycle. It got black from breakfast. Every time you fry in a film of fat at frying temperature, you are running the same reaction the oven runs, hotter, faster, and only where the food made contact. Bacon builds, cornbread builds, fried potatoes build, boiling water in it builds nothing, and simmering tomato sauce for 2 hours actively takes seasoning off because acid dissolves the film. Once the film thins, iron starts moving into the food, which, to be fair, is not automatically a problem. Studies have measured a real increase in the iron content of food cooked in cast iron, and the effect is strongest with acidic foods. That's dietary iron. For some people, that's a benefit. I'm not going to tell you it treats anything. I'll tell you the measurement is real and repeatable. Quick tomato dish, no issue. 2-hour braise, use a different pot. After 30 years of breakfast, the film stops being a coating and becomes a structure. Polymerized oil, carbon, and iron oxide fused in layers you can see the depth of. That's what patina means on a skillet. Not dirt. Sediment. Stop here a second, because I owe you the flaxseed answer. Flaxseed oil has a second name, linseed oil. Same plant, Linum usitatissimum. Pressed for the kitchen, it's flaxseed. Pressed for the workshop, it's linseed. The oil in wood finishes and the oil that paint pigment is ground into. Every oil painting from the Northern Renaissance forward is pigment suspended in linseed oil. Those paintings hang in museums right now, and if you stand close to one, you'll see the surface is webbed with fine cracks. Conservators call it craquelure, the crack pattern that develops as an oil film ages. It happens because linseed oil never really stops polymerizing. It keeps hardening for decades. It keeps shrinking. It keeps pulling against itself until it lets go of whatever it's stuck to. That is exactly what is happening on the bottom of a flaxseed seasoned skillet. It isn't your technique. It's a 500-year-old material doing the one thing it has always been documented to do. Art conservators have been writing about it since the 1800s. The cast iron internet rediscovered it around 2011 and called it a mystery. The next video is about rendering your own lard at home, the fat Verna used for everything, including that pan. If you want to be here when it drops, subscribe now. Abraham Darby patented the sand casting method that made iron cookware cheap in Coalbrookdale, England in 1707. Nearly every iron pot in the English-speaking world for the next 2 centuries descends from that one process. Those pans came into the Ozarks in wagons. They outlasted the wagons. They outlasted the farmhouses. Most outlasted the families that carried them in. Nobody in that chain read an article about it. The knowledge moved hand to hand, at a stove, in the dark, before work, for 300 years. Then it stopped, in roughly the time it took 1 generation to buy a Teflon pan. You're the first link that has to pick it up on purpose, so do this tonight. After dinner, wash your skillet however you normally wash it. Then set it on a burner over medium heat for 2 minutes until every trace of water is gone and the pan is slightly too hot to hold. Cut the heat. Put half a teaspoon of whatever cooking oil is already in your kitchen into the pan and rub it over the entire surface with a paper towel. Then take a second dry towel and wipe it back off until that towel comes away nearly clean. Leave it on the stove and walk away. That's 1 layer. You just did what Verna did every night for 51 years, and you didn't buy a thing to do it. Now tell me something. What's the oldest pan in your house? And do you know who it came from? If there's a foundry mark or a number cast into the bottom, read it out to me in the comments. A lot of you are cooking on something older than you are and don't know it. A skillet doesn't wear out. It only ever gets forgotten. Yours is 1 dinner away from starting over.